Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The spa and spa life, the SPA, is for seek power always. That power within you to do your bigger work in the world. Now, someone who's doing big work in the world is definitely Matthew Grissom. He is obsessed, you heard the word obsessed, with challenging conventional beliefs. He's on a 20-year mission to be the most disruptive money influencer of our time. Love this goal. After a hard fall from grace in 2005, which we'll get into a little bit later, Matthew developed a new vision for life, leaderships, relationships, and money that ran counter to Wall Street upbringing. Now his work is about helping people become more intentional about their money. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Diane. This is fun.
I'm so excited here. I'm just going to jump right into, the buzz that's happening right now is this book, Financial Sobriety. It's an amazing book. And I really want to jump into that about, this whole financial sobriety, just the topic alone is just has you lean in.
Sure.
And this whole about, rebuilding your relationship with money. Talk about a little bit about your story and how this book even came about.
Sure. Well, the book kind of came about by accident. It really was a complete accident. I didn't really have any intention of writing a book. What happened was I kind of came to a pivotal point in my career where I was looking to kind of be more of service to my community. I was working for the big Wall Street firms, and I'd kind of gotten to a point where I wanted to take kind of some of the knowledge, some of my experiences, and be part of my community. And that's when I leaned in with my personal financial advisor at the time, my business partner today, Jim Gebhardt, to join his firm, become a part of what he was doing. And I was sitting in the office one day, just really bored. I had absolutely nothing to do. I didn't have any clients. I didn't really have much of a roadmap. And I called him and asked for something to do. And he said, boy, why don't you just start writing? Just sit down and start writing. Take a couple of hours every day just to write about your experiences. And what started happening, Diane, over time, and I appreciate him for doing this, he'd forward me articles that would come out of some of the kind of the mainstream media of our industry. And since my beliefs tend to be a little counter, as you said so elegantly in the introduction, my beliefs about money and relationships and all this kind of stuff that's printed in the major media, every time Jim would send me an article, just something in it would trigger me or piss me off or just get me fired up. And, I'd just start pounding away on my keyboard, writing about it. And over time, I started developing a lot of content. What really kind of turned for me was at one point, Jim had suggested I actually write about my story, my personal story, my personal relationship with money, so to speak, kind of the story that he and I were still keeping secret at that point, the story that kind of led me to find him back in 2005. But that's kind of how the book got started. It was an accident. I started writing about things passionate to me, and until one day, my most dark, vulnerable, personal story finally got put on paper, and that was kind of the beginning of financial sobriety.
Right. I love that. And it's also the title of your podcast where, in the first episode, you really go deep into what that story is and what that looks like. And I know that we're going to talk about the details at the end, but I also just want to say that, people can go to yourfinancialsobriety.com to learn more about, the book, the podcast, hiring Matthew to speak, and just really looking at where he has even some like live events and really getting into the space about talking about money.
Yep.
I find that in the circles, you've seen this too, people do stay pretty undercover in some of that. Excuse me, because we don't know, maybe because I'm talking about money, right? What's
Sure.
getting choked up, right? So it's interesting to see, I believe that at any time when people are on their journey, there's a point where they feel disempowered. And sometimes even the work that we are actually doing is where we actually need work. We can totally help other people, but then when we look at what's happening with ourselves, that can be disempowering, and that is part of the path. So I'd love for you to really talk about, what happened in that 2005 and how, you've really just kind of blown the doors off around your own experience and put yourself out there so people can see themselves in that and really make a real change around their money.
Sure, absolutely. And where 2005 really started was way back when I was 16 years old. There were only three things back then I really wanted, Diane. And the first thing was this beautiful, beautiful 16-year-old girl that I saw from across the room. I, of course, was a 16-year-old boy. And I saw this incredible girl. I mean, just with these bright green eyes, and I mean, her smile, it just kind of knocked me on my butt. And I knew at that moment that this was the woman I wanted, this girl. And this was love. I mean, this was one of probably the most important thing I wanted in my life at that point was the love of this girl. You know, the second thing that I wanted was money. My very first job, I was a dishwasher at this little kind of hole in the wall sandwich shop in Schenectady, New York. I was making $3 an hour washing dishes every day after school. And I'll never forget when I got that first paycheck, it was 48 bucks. And when it was in my hands, it was just, like something was triggered, right? Almost like the alcoholic who takes that first drink, right? The second one can't come fast enough. And the next paycheck couldn't come quick enough. But you know, 48 bucks wasn't enough. I wanted it to be 48,000 bucks so that I could buy this girl anything she wanted, right? So if I could have love, and then I could have the money to give this person who I love anything she could ever want, which if you got to know Amy, you'd know that that was nothing she ever wanted from me, but somehow inside of me, it's what I wanted to give her.
Right.
And I think the reason I wanted to give that to her was because if I could give her everything she wanted, then she'd call me her hero. You know, I'd get that pat on the back. I'd be recognized for being able to take care of her, being able to take care of all my people. And then if Amy, if the whole world looked at me and said, hey, Matthew's our hero, then I could look in the mirror and feel good about myself. If you all said I was a good person, then I could finally believe it. So it was love, it was money, it was recognition, which ultimately let me feel good about myself.
Right.
Now, fast forward a whole bunch of years later, and by the summer of 2005, I was 33 years old, and I had those three things. I mean, I had it. We were standing, I was standing in my master bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror, kind of admiring myself a little bit. I was waiting for a town car to come pick me up to take me off to the airport. I was about to swoop into the San Diego Convention Center and speak in front of 1,000 financial advisors on how to provide a proper level of financial security for their clients. I had made the way to the top of the industry. I was standing in the bathroom feeling really good about myself. I had my new suit on. I had a gorgeous new Rolex on the end of my wrist, and I was feeling really good about it. Amy was in the bedroom behind me, and she called in, hey Matthew, did you get cash out for me before you left like you told me you would? I want to take the boys to Sunsplash while you're away this weekend. Oh, I had totally forgotten to do that. I was in my own head. I was thinking about where I'm going. No, hon, I didn't get the money out like you'd asked. Just stop at the ATM on the way to Sunsplash. She actually needed cash. This place didn't take credit cards or anything like that. So I pull my laptop out just to figure out which bank account that she should go in to get the money out. And I'm sitting here dialing in and I'm looking, and to my surprise, my checking account was overdrawn by $210.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, initially when I saw that had to be a bank mistake, right? I mean, I had just had the largest deposit of my lifetime just a couple weeks before that. Over $50,000 came in a direct deposit into my account. Now I'm overdrawn by $210. So there had to be a mistake by the bank. Hey, Aim, there's a mistake at the bank. Use one of the credit cards. You can get a cash advance on one of those. Well, which one do I use? So again, I'm online and I'm looking. Chase Visa. Whoa, maxed out. Ooh, that's not good. All right, thank God we have others. Wells Fargo Visa. Whoa, maxed out. Okay, I've got one card left. Oh. Ooh, the third card was maxed. I mean, just sitting here telling you about that's kind of bringing it back a little bit that day.
That wincing.
I mean, here I was I mean, I'm a rock star, right? I'm the guy that's supposed to go tell the whole world about financial security, and I'm broke. I mean, no purchasing power. I know what I got to do. I got to go in the bedroom. I've got to tell Amy we're broke.
Wow.
When I walked in there, Diane, and told her that, the look in her eyes, her hands started to shake. I could feel just kind of this rush of blood coming up into my head. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I took off. I ran out of the house. I jumped in my car. All I could do was drive. Obviously, I couldn't go to San Diego. I mean, how was I going to pay for the car service? How was I going to check into the hotel without a credit card? How was Amy going to take the boys to the doctor and do a $10 copay if the boys were sick? I mean, all these thoughts in my head about how are we going to live? How are we going to survive? So I got in my car and I started driving. So just north of where I live here is this long stretch of Highway 65. It just goes on for days. And I remember driving up that highway, just all in my head, trying to think of something. And I glanced up into my rearview mirror and kind of caught my reflection, kind of caught myself looking back at me. And I was just cussing myself out. You piece of garbage, right? I was using much stronger language than that.
Right.
And all I could really see looking back at me was my $4 million company paid life insurance policy. It was staring me in the face. And the thought came into my mind that Amy and the boys would be a lot better with that than they would be with me. All I had to do was turn my wheel a little to the left as this big semi truck was coming down Highway 65, and all would be okay. They'd be okay. My misery would be gone. Well, lucky for me, that didn't happen.
Right.
You and I are sitting here having a nice conversation today. You know, I don't remember how long I drove around for, but it was a while. And when I finally got home, thank God for this woman. She was sitting there in our front family room. Miles at the time, my oldest son, he was 5. My Lucas, the little guy, he was 2, and he was kind of clutching his little puppy. And you could just see the tears, you know, that had been dried on their faces. They didn't know where I went. They didn't know what happened. And at that point, you know, we put the boys to bed and we sat down and kind of sort of came up with a plan. You know, Amy kind of took charge and we're going to shut things down. We're going to live on whatever we have in the house and we're going to make do, and somehow we're going to survive. Luckily, we had cabinets full of macaroni and cheese and ramen noodles and soup and, you know, all the stuff the kids eat. We had plenty of that stuff. So that's what we did. We hunkered down for a few weeks. But, you know, every morning I'd get up, I'd go into my bathroom, I'd brush my teeth, I'd look up in my mirror, and I couldn't help but just see that life insurance policy looking back at me for weeks. Well, I knew we had to get help. I knew we couldn't just hunker down. Eventually, I was going to get paid again, which would give us the life support we needed. But something happened. I mean, there were behaviors that were going on. I mean, I knew we were spending money like it grew on a tree in my backyard, but I didn't understand why or to the severity for that matter. But yet, I wasn't comfortable really talking about this with anyone. I mean, I had this image to uphold, right? I was a Wall Street guy who had built a reputation of being a rock star. I was a national speaker for one of the largest insurance companies on planet Earth. There was nobody I could possibly tell this to without risking, you know, tarnish to my reputation. But there was one guy, and it was the guy I was telling you about early in our conversation. He was a financial advisor that I had met just several weeks earlier. But there was something unique about him. You know, this guy, Jim Gebhardt, I had met him a few weeks earlier, and he's one of those guys that, I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, but the first time I ever met him, I felt like I knew him my whole life.
Absolutely.
Right? He's just one of those people that you feel this incredible safety and this incredible trust with. So I rolled the dice. I picked up the phone. I called him. I said, I desperately need to come see you. He said, come on down. I got in my car, drove 90 miles to go see him. I don't know how I got there, probably on fumes. I do remember he loaned me $20 to put gas in my car to get home that day. And I told him the story I just told you, and I did one of these. You know, I was waiting for this Wall Street guy, right, this financial advisor, my dear Catholic friend Jim, to kind of turn his collar around and start wagging his finger at me about all the things I could have, would have, should have done.
Right.
But it's not what he did. He listened. And he leaned in and he made me feel safe as I was telling my story. And what he said to me after that was a level of empathy and compassion I had never felt from another man before. He just said, wow, man, that sounds really hard. You know, you almost got this right. You wanted love, you wanted money, you wanted recognition. I understand all of that. But you know, this didn't happen to you. It happened for you. Say that again, right? That was the moment that things really began to change. And what Jim and I were able to do at that point was he kind of helped me flush out that what I really had come to realize was I had these three significant relationships in my life. I had this relationship with money, right? And a relentless pursuit for money, because if I went after money, I could take care of my people, right? The second significant relationship in my life were these people in my life that I wanted them to be taken care of. I wanted them to look at me as their hero. And then that third relationship, my relationship with myself, I could have a good relationship with myself if everybody thinks I'm a good person. And what Jim had shared with me is those three significant relationships were meaningful. I got them backwards, right? That relentless pursuit for money wound up damaging my most important relationships in life, which left me feeling pretty crappy about myself, to the point that I almost drove straight on into a semi truck to make the pain go away.
Right.
And what we went on a path forward at that point was realizing that if I actually started with healing that relationship, that broken relationship with myself, that would let me take that kind of forgiveness and that kind of compassion and that kind of empathy that I had for myself and bring that into my relationships with the people in my life that mattered most. And when I was able to do those first two things, Diane, that third relationship I had with money became so much simpler. Because you see, Jim helped me get very clear on the people, the places, the experiences that truly at a core values kind of level meant the most to me. And that really simplified my relationship with money. And the best part is that guy, Jim Gebhardt, happens to be my business partner today. And now I get to work shoulder to shoulder with him, doing for other people what he helped me do. And it's just an amazing way to go out and have impact. You know, I was on the top of the financial food chain. I was at the very bottom of the financial food chain. I'm somewhere in between, right? Yeah. I pay my bills on time. I spend less than I make every month. I save every month. I've got a kid in college that we're paying for. But I'll tell you, I feel wealthier today than I've ever felt in my life. Mm-hmm. Because of how I've got those relationships in the right order for myself.
Right. Well, first of all, I love just the fact that your willingness to share this story, not only here on the show, but just in your book and on your podcast, and you're just constantly putting yourself out there, because as we all know, you're not alone in this, and there's people that feel so isolated because it has become such this taboo topic to talk about your finances.
Sure.
And and I think there's like this innate feeling that people think like they're born, like they should know how to make it work, but yet they're being governed by, the marketing. And, I love how you talk about in your book about, trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? And just trying to create this lifestyle that may not actually be in alignment with why you're here and what you're doing. And so I'd love for you to share just, a lot of things that come up around this is fear, right? People have fears in their life about just a lot of different things, but I definitely think, money is at the top of that for a lot of people. And you have kind of a 4-step process around getting through fear. So I'd love you to share a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. That, fear is an emotion. And it's one of those emotions that we can deal with in the moment. I love using acronyms for everything that I have to deal with in life. And for me, fear, if we break that into a 4-letter acronym, to me is false evidence appearing real, right? And so the first thing that I do, and fear is not something I can avoid. I mean, it's something that I still feel today, even though I have a kind of a process of how to deal with it. It's not something I can avoid. What changes about going through a process of dealing with fear is how I wind up choosing to act or not act, react or not react as a result of that fear. The very first thing I do when I'm feeling fear is I stop and I breathe. Mm-hmm. It's the most important part of the process. The minute I feel that thing, right? And I think it's really important for people to realize, or for people to, really take a moment to try to feel what fear feels like in your body. What is the actual physical sensation that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the very first thing I do is I stop and I breathe. I take 3 or 4 deep breaths and try to feel the physical sensation. And for me, the way I like to do it is it's kind of like this spiraling thing in my chest. I feel this twisting in my chest. And by just stopping to take those breaths, what it does is it creates a little bit of space, right? It creates a little bit of space of
Expansion.
yeah, just letting me have space around me, right? And that's kind of the first big thing with how I deal with fear, right? Step number 1. You know, I got to admit with you, Diane, I'm not remembering steps 2, 3, and 4 right now. I don't have my notes in front of me. So if you could, if you could maybe lead me a little bit on this. I mean, that first step is the most important part, right? Is just that taking that deep breath,
right,
and breathing for a little bit and pausing for a little bit.
Right. So that second part is talking about reminding yourself you're okay.
Ah, yes.
Right. So, and you know, I love acronyms as well. And one of the things I love too that comes in with fear, and you definitely, you know, utilize this as well, is because you talk about feelings, right? Fear is feeling. So if you look at another acronym with fear is feel everything and rise.
I love that.
You know,
I love that. Yeah, the second step, that's I appreciate the reminder. It is very much that reminder of no matter what I'm feeling. Well, it comes from that space, right? The first space that I get to create by breathing. It allows my brain the opportunity to say, "You're okay." Right? You're okay. And knowing that I'm going to be okay, just that letting the temporariness of every emotion, right? Every emotion we have is a temporary thing. It comes and it goes, whether it's waves of joy, waves of stress, waves of fear, waves of worry, waves of pain. They come and they go. And by breathing, by reminding myself that I'm going to be okay, then I can remind myself that this is temporary and this too shall pass. Right? It's going to go away.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I love going into like the third step is something that you really dove into is journaling, right? Just writing and how much writing can actually affect and shift in the change of doing that. So how does journaling help you move through that fear?
Yeah, great. Journaling has been a game changer for me on so many fronts. Right. What I'm in the habit of doing now every night is before I go to bed, I tend to do some writing. And, you know, in the moment when I'm feeling that fear, when I breathe, when I remind myself I'm okay, when I start writing about it a little bit, then what it does is, and I you know, I'm not a doctor. I don't understand the kind of the biological thing that's going on here, but it's like all of this energy that's inside of me, all this fear energy that's in my head, that's in my body, somehow, some way just kind of comes down my arm and goes into the paper. And literally it's a transfer of that energy out of me into the journal on the book. And what that's done for me is it's allowed me now every night when I'm laying in bed, I'm about to go to bed, I will sit down and whatever's going on up here, whether it's fear-based or not, just any thought that I have, any feeling that I have, any unresolved anything from my day, maybe some anxiety about the next day, right? I've got a big meeting tomorrow morning with one of my biggest prospective clients ever, right? I've got to get all that stuff out, right? Did I have an argument with Amy or one of my boys in that day that's just kind of sitting with me? And whatever's going on in my head, I get that all journaled out at night. And the net benefit has just been an incredible night's sleep. I used to struggle with sleep for so many years. And a friend of mine who I actually met thanks to the same place you and I met, was someone who taught me, his name's Tim Adams, and he's an incredible human being who taught me about this concept of being able to transfer all that energy out of my head and my body and onto a piece of paper and getting a better night's sleep. You know, he was helping me improve my health, and we started with getting a good night's sleep and the most effective ways to do it. And I was trying to take every supplement in the world, melatonin, you name it, to sleep at night. None of it was working. And then Tim told me about the idea of journaling, and it's led to so many benefits to me, from sleep to dealing with fear in the moment.
Yeah.
Tons of help.
Absolutely. You know, that just reminds me of kind of an analogy of like the old claw tubs where, you know, you'd pull the plug and it's like you're letting the drain just release everything that is in your psyche. We forget how much all of the day's life, you know, can really affect us in that way. And just having tools like that to be able to release it out of your body, to allow yourself to actually relax. And just, you know, for our listeners who are paying attention with the fourth one, it really goes into that, you talk about that voila, right? It's about just really acknowledging that it's temporary.
It's right. And it's gone, right? By the time we go through this, and, you know, again, I apologize for the little brain fog I had here today.
All good.
You know, it's amazing that when you go through just some simple processes, right? And obviously this is a newer process that I'm applying in my life. And it's something that is working for me right now where, you know, breathe, realize that this is temporary. I'm going to be okay. We get to write this stuff out. But then there's this recognition. We have to recognize when it's gone. Oh, wow. It's gone. I'm back. I feel better, right? Because, you know, when I know what the fear feels like, when I know what the anxiety feels like, that helps me to kind of remember this process. But then I also have to remember what it feels like once it's all exited my body. And I've got to celebrate that a little bit, right? Voila, it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes that can be the most important thing, because I think as humans, we're so classic to just, you know, put out the fire, you know, just do the thing and keep going. But when you actually have some awareness around that, and then you can like, oh, okay, so you're actually experiencing, this is fear, you know, this is maybe neutrality for a moment. And this is actually, I feel released from that, right?
Yep.
And to know what those different feelings are within yourself allows you to then go, I want to go to that, right? Yep. Or I want to be in that space. And, but yet to recognize it while you're in it, because emotions are so fleeting, it's going to change like the weather again, pretty quickly. And it's going to affect you differently. And so I love the consciousness of that, of really, choosing your environment. And I talk a lot about environments where we have different experiences of how we feel in our office or our living room or our bedroom. And so I always like to ask my guests, what's your favorite room in your home and why?
Oh, great question. My favorite room in my home is my master bedroom. I have a little window seat kind of in the front of my master bedroom. And in the morning, I get this incredible blast of sun. So I kind of open the shades up. And you know, we've got these big kind of wooden blinds that I just kind of open them up, and I sit on the window seat and I can look out and see the Sierra Nevada mountains off in the distance. And, you know, the sun's coming up and it's facing the east. It's just absolutely beautiful and serene. And it just helps me connect, right? It really helps me feel kind of teeny tiny, right? A small part of something much bigger than me. But yet at that same time, being a small part of something much bigger than me is what gives me that grounding every day. Right, to be able to go out and have the kind of impact we're trying to have. I love that space in my house. It's my favorite spot.
I love that so much. I mean, it's so important to create those kind of spaces that inspire you, that actually allow you to ground yourself and to really come from a place that that allows you to reset, right? And be able to do all the bigger things that we're doing in the world. And it's those simple things. It's interesting. It's really those simple things that don't cost anything.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and what's been really cool about the process, you know, spending time there in that spot and just, you know, having this conversation about feeling your feelings, you know, the ability to stay present in those feelings, whether they're good or bad. I mean, that's what I was doing, Diane, for so many years of my life is I would feel that fear, I would feel that anxiety, and I would go fill that negativity up by buying stuff, right? Impulsively spending money. And you know, until I ran out of money and didn't have any more money to fill it up with, then I started filling it up with things like, you know, compulsive eating and drinking and just all sorts of unhealthy behaviors. So until I figured out a way to be okay feeling these feelings, you know, I've learned that in those painful moments, in those fearful moments, that's where some of the best growth in my life actually comes from. That's where, you know, on the other side of that, when I get to that voila moment, when I'm sitting in that place in my house, that when I look back at some of the pain that I felt, I mean, the amount of growth that comes from that, the amount of resolve that comes from that, the amount of proof that I'm going to be okay that comes from that. It helps me protect my confidence in a way that's sometimes hard to describe, verbally like this. You just have to see it and experience it yourself to really feel what that feels like.
Right. Well, I love how you're incorporating universal laws. I mean, one of the universal laws is that, we abhor a vacuum, right? It's like we can sure take these things out of our life, but what are you going to replace it with? And so that's where it's like the spending or eating or all the things, because we're trying to fill that void.
Yep.
And so when you have the awareness, you can actually fill it with things that you love, and, or just intention or something that you're filling it that allows you to actually be in alignment with the things that you want to have. And that's one of the things I love about what you're up to, is that you've brought all of those things that are important to you, those 3 important relationships, into alignment. So they actually go together and they actually move into your life. So I love that so much.
Awesome. Yeah, it's incredible to realize how intimately intertwined those 3 relationships are, right? The relationship we have with ourselves, the relationship we have with our people, and the relationship we have with our money. And it's incredible, because for me to have such a dysfunctional relationship with money, I really thought I could isolate that and keep that away. But yet in public, somehow uphold this image of something completely different. Yet those relationships are so intimately intertwined with one another that if just one is out of balance, if one's out of whack, it's going to have an effect on the other relationships. And, starting with that one with myself, kind of getting that core relationship, which would include, any relationship someone might have with a faith or a universal understanding, a religion, or whatever it is. I had to get to a place in my life where I believed there was some kind of higher power that wasn't me, right? That there was something out there that I could be a part of, that could guide me, that could kind of help me get out of my head and get out of having to make decisions and choices every day. And that really was center for my healing.
Yeah. Oh, I love it so much. I mean, there's so many ways we could be talking about this all afternoon and,
Sure.
and go into that. So for those of you who are just maybe popping in, you definitely need to go back from the beginning. For those who are watching versus listening, I'm holding up, this best-selling book, Financial Sobriety, a different way to look at your life around money. And I know, Matthew, it's amazing. You actually have a free chapter for our listeners who would like to just peek into this, and maybe they want to put their toe in before they get the whole book. How can they go about doing that?
Absolutely. If you would send us an email at info@yourfinancialsobriety.com, send us an email with just your name, and obviously we'll have your email address, then we will send the copy of that chapter right to you in a nice little PDF for you to get a good kind of taste of what to expect from the experience of reading the book and listening to the podcast.
Perfect. And we're going to have all those links in the show notes for people to get into. And, for those of you who this is really like resonated with, and you need to go deeper into this, jump on Amazon and just get the book. Go from there. So, Matthew, do you have any final thoughts or words for our listeners?
Well, first, I wanted to express a whole bunch of gratitude to you, Diane, for having me here today, for having this conversation. Jim and I created Financial Sobriety really for one reason and one reason only, and that's to have as much impact in the lives of people who are still suffering the way I did when it comes to this relationship that they have with money. There's a lot of ache in the world today when it comes to people and their relationships with money. We live in a society that, for all intents and purposes, has weaponized this thing called money. And it's become so divisive. And we kind of have the haves and the have-nots. And so many people, whether you are a have or whether you are a have-not, I don't have enough, I've got too much. And in both cases, there is so much ache around money. And all I could do is just encourage anybody who has that ache, just to breathe, just to kind of pause for a minute. And get on the podcast, buy the book. I mean, Jim and I really want to help as many people as we possibly can, because it's a problem out there today. And we would like to see money as more of a healing mechanism, and something that, when we align that relationship we have with money, with the things, with the people, the places, the experiences that truly bring us joy in our lives, things get so much simpler, so much more joy in our lives when it comes to aligning that money with the things that mean the most to us. So buy the book, get on the podcast and send us an email if you have any follow-up questions from our little conversation today.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Matthew, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure having you here. And I'm just so excited about the space that you've claimed here for people to really shift their whole relationship with money and, talking about it. Like, this is just an important thing to be able to do. And then to our listeners, thank you so much for just, your most important resource is your time. And we so value you spending some time here with us. Please, whatever platform you're on, whether you're watching or listening, please put into the comments, what's something you took away from this? What are you going to actually do going from here? And to make sure that you tag both Matthew and myself to answer any questions that we have. We want to help you on the path to really have some awakening around this. And really we want to expand these kind of conversations, positive conversations that change people's life, people who are taking action, taking action in their life to do things differently. So please, share this, subscribe, put in your thoughts and review. It all makes a difference. And that's how you become part of the community, is to help get the word out. So please do that today. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.